there are situational times where sometimes you just got to knock the guy out of bounds, you know. And John Crawford saw that play, went high and went for the ball. Was that a teaching moment for you there?
It was, yeah. I think that for the whole defense, two things. Number one, you understand where the ball is. He's run down the sideline. He really takes a great angle of pursuit after we had another player that did not. And then you just got to understand the situation. You know, even if he happens to get the ball out, it's going to go out of bounds. You know, so obviously number one priority would be to tackle the ball carrier. So he didn't do that, and it's really unlike him. He's really not made those kind of mistakes. But then that was really costly. Should have been about 20-yard run, and ended up being, 60 plus. So very disappointed in that. And but it kind of a little bit in some ways, signified the day. I didn't think that we didn't play as well as we've been playing, and but we were very effective at critical times, and to me that was the key. And interestingly enough, as I challenged our team on Sunday, we talked about that because that was my point of emphasis in some previous games where we played really, really well the majority of the time, but at some critical moments we broke down. Whereas I think in this game, we really didn't play as well as I would have liked for us to in more times than not. But then when it came down to those critical points in the game, we stepped up and made huge plays that really were the difference in the game. So, as I talked to them, to me that's the next step in becoming a great defense is making those critical plays and stepping up in those moments. So I was actually very, very encouraged by that because that was a step we needed to take. Just like to see us be able to be more consistent. And I'll give credit to Maryland. I thought they did a really good job. They gave us a lot of new wrinkles in the run game that we hadn't seen, and made us adjust on the fly, and did a lot of. It looked like good old fashioned wing tee in a lot of ways, and a lot of misdirection, and your eyes were really playing tricks on you if you didn't get them zeroed in, and without having a chance to rep a lot of that. It caused some challenges for our guys. And I think even in the talent of their backs, I said it before, I thought their running backs as a group were extremely talented, and that kind of led to some of our missed tackles. They're really, really good, and we didn't do a great job wrapping up. So be a big point of emphasis for us this week, as we always emphasize tackling, but I wasn't pleased with that. But I do feel like that, sometimes you have to say, hey, the other team's got some really good players, and they played well, and they ran hard, and we knew they were going to be hard to tackle. And they also isolate you. They kind of spread you out and make you create a lot of one-on-ones. And so we have to rise up and improve in those areas.
It looks like Rutgers has changed quarterbacks, gone to the younger guy. Assuming that continues, how much does that change the dynamics of what they do?
It's interesting because you go through, and they've played several different quarterbacks, and so they're a little bit different with each guy. So I think, and then they have a bye week before we play them here. So, I think that you're going to have to be able to take a broad approach to be able to know just in concept what they like to do, and then really adjust in the game based on his skill set. And obviously he's a guy that I think throws the ball pretty well, and so that gives them a dimension that they really need to have, and it forces you not to be able to gang up on them in the box like that they've had other teams have been able to do in the past. And so he gives them an opportunity for that, and he has shown the ability to run the football too. So I think you'll have a core similarity overall, but they've kind of taken on personalities each week and what they've decided to do, and different formations and different ways they attack you. So I think we're going to have to really do a great job once that game starts of modifying the attack.
It's a guy you've talked about before, but Marcelino Ball, how have you seen him improve this season? In particular, it doesn't seem like he's really slowed down at all, despite the fact that as a freshman he's played an awful lot.
Yeah, a lot of times young men that are that age, they come in, they may get off to a hot start, and they do a lot of good things, but then the wear and tear of the season sometimes gets to them. Just the academic load for the first time gets to them, and sometimes just playing better teams throughout the season. But I think the thing for him, I've said this before, he's from a high school program that's used to playing deep in the playoffs, 14, 15 games a year. There at Roswell High School in Georgia. I think that prepares you for a college season, where some kids, if you're playing 9, 10 games a year, you start getting later in the season, that grind gets to you more. But he's used to it. And so I think that's one plus for him. And physically, he's strong. That allows him. But I think the biggest thing is his attitude. He's just, he's so coachable. Even just spending time with him again this weekend and just one-on-one with him. He just has a great approach. He's just such a sponge to want to learn. And even on the sideline, we had that. He made a mistake on one of the routes, and right away he knew. He's like self-correct. He actually beat me to the punch of saying, hey, I know I should have done this. It really wasn't something that you'd expect a kid at his age to really understand, but he just understands football. So those are good things. He's battling, he's tough, and he kind of embodies the personality of our defense, and that is we're going to be, high energy, tough, aggressive, and that's what Marcelino ball is all about.
I think Tigre either leads the nation in solo stops or is second or something. I haven't seen the stats yet, but he's just continued to amass tackles.
He has.
Talk about his play.
Yeah, I think that he continues to play well, but I'm just always remind everyone of this, and that is what we expect. I mean, he is doing what he's supposed to do. And if you're going to play linebacker in about any defense system I can think of, you better be a leader and you better be productive. And those are the things that, he's being extremely productive. And he's near the ball by design. He's reading his keys, he's reacting, he's tackling well. And, but he's doing what he's supposed to do, and there's no question that he's done it consistently well, which is what you want. But I also feel like that sometimes, guys like that, you say, hey, this is what you're supposed to do, and we encourage him for that. But I want to continue to challenge him in the little things in his preparation and to continue to rise up as a leader, and the way he handles himself. And because everybody, as you continue to produce, that puts more pressure on you, more expectation on you. Can you handle those things? Can you handle the success? And I think that that's a big challenge for us is can we handle, playing well. I feel like even in the last couple, maybe the last 6 quarters haven't played always the way I want us to. And sometimes it's a matter of, I challenged them. I kind of sensed a little bit last week, are you guys satisfied with being a much improved unit? Or do you want to be great? Because if you're just satisfied with being a much improved unit, then, pat yourself on the back and nice job. But that's not our goal. From day one is we want to be a great defense. And so Tigre is a huge part of that. And I want him to understand that he's doing a great job, and I'm proud of him for that, but he's doing the things he's supposed to do. And I want him to continue to take another step and continue to lead and elevate his play and elevate his leadership and his preparation so we can be great.
Wilson talked a lot about Marcus. It just seems he's had such a great eye for the ball this year, even through how messy it can get on the field. He always just is so zoned in on the ball. Can you talk about, him for a little bit and really his knack for forcing turnovers?
Yeah, he does, and obviously before I ever got here, he was a guy that had a knack to rake the ball out and create fumbles, and that hasn't diminished. Obviously, the way we emphasize it has taken that emphasis to another level, and as a defensive unit. But at the same time, he has responded to that and continued. I mean, you think about the 2 huge plays, even the one that we didn't get. You think about it was 3rd and 3, and he zeroed in on the quarterback when he rolled out, to the quarterback's right, to our left, and just a physical, but it was a fundamental, put your face mask on the football, and ball comes flying out. And obviously it knocks the ball back even further, because at that point in the game and where they're at on the field, they're probably going to go for it on 4th down if it was 4th and medium to short. And so it totally knocked him out of that whole possibility. So that was a huge play. We go through and we record and talk about the plays that were really game-changing. That was a huge one for us, and that was Marcus Oliver doing what he does best. And obviously, a lot of guys in his situation, when he sacked the quarterback, they just tackle the guy. But he raked at the ball. Used great technique. We work on that, but he does have a knack for it. And I think that this is something that certain guys do, but I will say this. He's bought into the emphasis. He's bought into the little things that we, talk about. And if you watch him in practice, and we reward our guys for raking at the ball, and he's always doing that. And so he learned it, maybe even before he got here, I don't know, but he seemed to understand the importance of attacking the football. And so it's really been great to have that and have him and other guys follow suit. So anytime you get the ball on the ground, and Marcelino, just talking about, he was the one that recovered it, and he got 2 takeaways himself. So those kind of guys that it's never an accident. Your playmakers, they're around the football, and they make plays, and they're game changers. And right now, those guys are really making a big impact for us.
As far as Marcus goes, how impressive is it for him to have that mental focus to just be able to focus on the ball when, as the defensive
still got to worry about, checks and making the right reads and making sure he's communicating effectively with everybody.
I think it's part of playing the position. Linebackers got to be able to do a lot of things, and we put a lot on our plate, and that's why I'm the hardest on them than anybody else, and was, wanted to be that way from the beginning because I want them to handle that pressure. And I tell them I'm going to, in spring ball and fall camp, I'm going after those guys in practice to make sure that the game is easier, that they can see everything they need to see, and that someone's in their year, and then they got to be able to focus, and they got to be able to lock in, and whatever new formation they give us, and make the checks and adjustments. And then at the same time, when the ball snaps, just be a football player. And that's what he does. I think all that kind of stuff goes out. That ball snap, you just go get the football. Read your keys and attack the ball. And I think his instincts just kind of takes over from there. And that's why a lot of times linebackers are guys that, there's certain things you can coach about them. Other things you got to let them, you got to trust your recruiting to say, hey, we got the right guy. That when that ball is in the air, when that ball is snapped, it's sick 'em. And that's where, to me, the game gets real simple. It's you find the football and you go get the ball. And the guy that's got in his hand, you get him on the ground or you take it from him. And that's really what the great linebackers can do. And he's one of those.
Outside of the quarterback changes, what challenges does Rutgers offense, especially with those two running backs, did they give you?
Well, first of all, very good offensive line. You look at them physically, they are lean and long and big and strong. And I was very impressed with them. Obviously they played a really difficult schedule. And anytime you play Michigan and Ohio State back-to-back weeks, that's hard on anybody. Physically, mentally, emotionally, and obviously with new staff there, new offense, a lot of new things, and trying to play different quarterbacks. And so that's obviously, was very difficult for them. Then you look and you turn around and you see what they did, at Minnesota, a very good football team, at their place, and really, have a chance. They're ahead in the final seconds, and Minnesota has to kick a field goal to beat them. And so I'm playing Iowa to a one-touchdown game, 14-7. And so to me, those are things I focus on. They got a couple good running backs. They got big receivers, 6'3", 6'5", big old 6'6" tight ends. Those are the kind of things that I look at. To me, they're going to try and do everything they can to be able to, keep us off balance and try and keep the chains moving, and they can create issues for you. So obviously because you don't have a tremendous feeling for exactly what they're going to do, and because of the changes that they've had, and then the fact that they got a bye week to prepare for you. So I think that they create situations where we got to play an excellent football game from start to finish. You need to start fast and finish strong.
Like the IU offense did the Wildcat package, something different, unique. From a defensive standpoint, how much do you play around with stuff, even if you don't end up using it? That you go, well, what would it be like if we did this or did this, something unique and different? And then how often do you implement it if you do this?
I try to do that because my whole thing is I don't want them to be able to sit there and have the film on us and just say, hey, we know exactly where they're going to be. We know exactly what they're going to do per this formation, this look, this whatever situation. And so I think that's important. I think that you want to be able to, sell a certain look pre-snap and then make them adjust to something that maybe they haven't seen before, or maybe you play it a certain way for several weeks and now you're playing a little different. I think, and you make, there's subtle things, but to me, that's part of being a good defense and being able to scheme in a way that allows you to be multiple and yet simple for your guys. And so definitely want to do those kinds of things. And and sometimes you invest in a certain concept and you do it a couple times and you like it, and sometimes you don't. And you may quit doing it. You may do it more than you thought you were going to do. And so I think there's no question that you really try. Like there's just a prime example. We had something we put in last week, for Maryland, and ran a couple times. Did not like it at all after the second time, and ditched it. And so sometimes we ran one thing we really liked and ran it way more than I thought we were going to. So I just think that you got to be able to adjust, but we definitely want to make some opportunities for us to be able to create some different pictures.
It seems like you guys have gotten a lot more penetration recently. 11 tackles for loss against Northwestern, 8 the other day. What's been the key to that?
I just think as our D-line continues to develop, they 4 sacks this past game, 3 the week before that, so 7 sacks in the last 2 games. As you mentioned, 18 tackles for loss in the last 2 games. And so a key part of our development is our defensive line. And as I said in the very beginning, a young group that had not been tested, not had a lot of guys with a lot of reps in games. And so, Coach Hagan working with those guys and just staying with them and just being, relentless in his teaching. Like I've described him in the past, I just think that's who he is. And that group is reflecting that, because you got to have great line play, both sides of the ball. Big men lead the way is a phrase that you'll hear me say, because I believe that it starts up front, and it's a collective group of guys. Not one just stands out, but as a collective group, they bought in. And I will say this: I think they play extremely hard, and that's a tribute to them, because the buy-in is extremely high for that group, and it shows in their effort. And that's the one variable that players completely control. And so when I see a group playing hard like that, it's a compliment to their coach, it's a compliment to them. And so I'm really proud of the D-line.